takes the peak, sprays him down, that's 3. Fantastic play.
Magnus goes in, gets a couple with the RP. It's stolen by Rubik. He gets all 5.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Telkom DGC at Rage 2016. Alright, the next game we're going to be presenting you is Zaymok versus Gas, which is definitely going to be a very interesting game here in the winners bracket. Again, I've got my co-caster here, Dib, our analyst, who's actually done a lot of preparation with Zaymok. But first of all, before we get to there, Dib, I've got 2 questions I need to ask you.
Okay,
quite vitally important for the Hearthstone community to know. The first one we have is with regards to what is the champion's breakfast for Hearthstone players attending the DGC at the moment?
Definitely OTs. I think you need to take OTs with you in a box to DGC if you really want to win. I think that's the kind of preparation that it takes to win a tournament like this.
Your preparation even goes as far as the breakfast that you need to take with you, and hopefully they've got a kettle so you can make it really, really nice.
Yeah, man, you've got to like take food with you, like or like something to snack on, so that in case especially if you play something like Control Warrior and you're gonna be playing like up until the time limit every game. There are a little bit of breaks between games at DGC, which is helpful, but I definitely think for a LAN environment like that, something like taking some food with you that you can snack on will definitely help. And if it's not, OTs is definitely the breakfast you want, and then after that, it might be bananas, but those haven't worked so well for me in the past.
Who was the player that has been eating quite a few bananas and everything? Stan Sivka.
Well, I mean, Stan Sivka, yeah.
Yeah.
Stan Sivka just like demolishes fruit, and it works for him. I was trying to channel some Stan Sivka once, and I took bananas. It didn't really work.
It didn't really work. Oh, that's unfortunate. All right. The second thing is, I understand that you and Zaymok are pretty close. Very good friends. Do a lot of preparation and everything together. Questions I've got for you though is, apparently there's this rumor going around that he enjoys long walks on the beach and reading romantic novels. And also enjoys like candlelight dinners and everything. Is any truth to all of this?
Not that I know of. You'd have to ask his girlfriend about that. But from what I know, he enjoys super nerdy things like board games and clearly playing lots of Hearthstone. So I mean, and he's definitely very committed. One thing I have to say is that he's only really come into the scene this year. Sort of towards the beginning of the year, he started attending some of the firesides that Weekly Level Up hosted down here in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he made the final in his very first one against Apex, and I was casting that game as well. And like, I just I just basically criticized him the whole time for his Freeze Mage play, which was quite off at the time. And since then, he's put a lot of effort into improving Freeze Mage. And Apex, and I usually prepare together for tournaments. He and I especially, because we tend to play quite similar decks. So, he's definitely improved a lot in this year, and he showed that at the Joburg Summer Prelims event, where he managed to walk away with a win there.
Yeah.
Once again, our preparation that we do together really paid off there. We try to predict the meta and what deck's going to be there, and it's worked for the last 2 tournaments that we attended, and it seems pretty spot on again for this tournament. So let's just hope that predicting the meta turns into the correct choice of decks, because those are 2 very different decisions to make, and hopefully he can bring it through this time, because he's also definitely one of the youngest players, I think, if not the youngest at DGC, only 16. So. It's really good to see these young players coming through.
Whoa. I think you just need to backtrack that. He's only 16?
Yeah.
You must be
He's
joking.
still in school. Yeah.
No ways. I honestly thought that Zaymok is legitimately around like 20, 21.
No.
Highly
He's
mature.
still just a little kid.
Highly mature for being at basically like intelligence-wise, he's a really intelligent person. I've been able to chat to him a few times at the summer prelims and everything. So, very, I'm actually blown away. I didn't even know that he was that young.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well,
his opponent for this game, Gas or Gascoon, is also shown like a lot of commitment. I mean, he traveled up from Durban to the Joburg event, the Joburg Summer Prelims. and
Cape
also
Town
came
as
down to Cape Town before that. So, he's also shown that he really enjoys these tournaments, these offline tournaments environments. Both of these players are actually quite experienced in these offline tournament environments. So, I don't expect the sort of pressure to necessarily get to them. I mean, Zaymok does tend to get quite stressed, but he's very good at channeling that stress into sort of positive focus on the game.
Yeah, and I know that it is something that sometimes players do struggle with as well, because I know personally, if I start getting stressed in a tournament environment, it starts affecting my team, my actual gameplay and everything as well. Just a shout out to everybody that is in chat. We do see you, Rowan shouting hashtag Team Jacob. I'm not too sure who Jacob is, but
Rowan's also been joining us in prep recently, mostly spamming memes though. So
well, there we
yeah, that's just Rowan being Rowan.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we've got our resident Durban memer, and also Fafa, who was at the IESF, that has come to join us, who is here to say, I'm here to be biased and to support my boys. So we're also going to have some biased, supporters here, which is fantastic. So welcome, Fafa. I hope that do you know how Fafa's event went at the IESF?
I think he went 3-3, and then was knocked out after the group stage. I think that was. So yeah.
So you've got a
Not
couple
as
of
well
people.
as you would have hoped, but it was a tough field.
Yeah. So yeah, there's also a couple of people. There's Fuzzy One saying, "Gotta have dank memes." We've also got Oh Lord Cheeses as well. So quite a bit of a diverse group that we have here in Twitch chat as well, watching this. Just so that everybody is aware, we're waiting for the bans between Gas and Zaymok. They both seem to still be hanging out in the main menu.
From what I heard, Gas doesn't want to ban yet until the game's ready to start, because he doesn't want to give Zaymok time to prepare, because he knows that Zaymok uses his preparation time really well, and he's very good at analyzing matchups and all this kind of stuff that we tend to do a lot beforehand. So he wants to sort of maximize his chances by not allowing Zaymok to do what he's good at.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
So Gas, but we do have more or less an indication, or based on the game, the way that Zaymok does play. We know more or less that he's potentially going to be banning Gas's Shaman. So basically, Gas is going to have Warrior, Warlock, and Hunter to be played. The overlay will be updated as soon as we have the ban from Gas for Zaymok. But pretty much Zaymok, the most likely lineup will probably be Rogue, Druid, and Hunter, with his Shaman being banned. I know that you've obviously done a lot of preparation here with Zaymok. Also, the only player to bring Rogue, and it is a miracle Rogue that he has brought with Questing Adventurers, a single SI7 agent as well as a Shadow Strike. Do you have some insights with regards to that?
The single SS7 agent thing has been seeing a lot more popularity recently. There's just less sort of really good targets for it. The only matchup that it's a little bit weaker in is Zoo, but he also has the Dark Eye and Skulker, which is specifically there to sort of help in that matchup, as well as still running double Fan of Knives. Some lists have been cutting the Fan of Knives recently. But this is a deck that Zaymok is very comfortable with, and in particular this list is very close to the list he played at the summer prelims event, which he managed to win. So it's definitely a deck he's very comfortable with. One of the only real new cards in it is Barnes, because sometimes you get some ridiculous synergy with the Barnes into Gadgets, and or even just Barnes into spell power cards is pretty powerful, or Barnes Tomb Pillager to give you an extra coin for your Gadgets and later.
Yeah.
So yeah, Barnes is quite interesting in this deck. It's also just a decent minion. One of the big cuts from this list is the Violet Teachers.
Yeah.
Which hurts a bit against Zoo as well, but the Dark Eye and Skulkers sort of more than make up for it most of the time.
Yeah, most definitely. Having a look at his Hunter list is similar to Gas's. There are, some significant changes, but, the archetype of the deck is pretty much the same. And by the way, we were both correct. Gas has just confirmed with me that both Shamans have been banned. So we're going to be jumping in game here really, really shortly. With these two players, really keen to get the game started. Quickly, another side note: Fuffer did mention that he went 3-3. He beat Sweden and Belgium, who were both of the teams to advance. Hard luck there, Fuffa, but you did us a lot of, a lot of proud and everything by doing that. So yeah.
Yeah. So, you're mentioning the hunters, and
Yeah.
I think it's quite interesting here. We see a sort of divergence in these hunter lists. So, Gas has gone a lot more all in on the secret package, playing a full 10 secrets and no sort of early game minions bar secret keeper. So his idea is that his Barnes should hopefully have a higher chance of giving him stuff like Highmane and Ragnaros, which he's running. Both
Yeah.
of these decks running both Ragnaros and Curator.
Yeah.
So they're running very similar top ends. Everything from 5 up is basically the same. Double Azurdrake, double Highmane, Curator Rag, and double Call of the Wild. The difference being that Zaymok is playing a little bit more consistent in early game in the Kindly Grandmothers, not playing as many secrets. He's also playing the double kill command, whereas Gas is playing the double quick shot. So the idea is that Gas is probably more likely to dump his hand with something like a Cloaked Huntress into a bunch of secrets, and therefore quick shot gets the draw value for him, whereas Zaymok's deck is more just wants the kill command for both board control with the extra beasts that it has in the deck, and also just extra reach.
Yeah, exactly. So in terms of those lists, I must be honest, I actually like Zaymok's a little bit more. One, just because it's not as secret heavy. The fact that I still prefer Kill Command with the fact that it's got that additional 2 damage, assuming you have a beast. And considering that he does have so many beasts, I actually really prefer that list over Gas's. But moving on to Gas, he's also brought Warlock, which is pretty much a straightforward disco lock, but he does run a power overwhelming, and I think there was also another thing that we were having a look at, which was also
there was the Demon Fire, which
the
is
Demon
sort
Fire.
of sometimes in the disco lock decks. He's also only playing one Abusive Sergeant since the Abusive Sergeant nerf. He obviously doesn't feel that it's as strong. Maybe that's where he made space for the one power overwhelming from.
Yeah.
I think that might have been how he teched it. He's also only playing one Direwolf Alpha, but that might, and one Darkshire Librarian, but those might have been cuts in favor of the Demon Fire or something like that. But he's playing both the Mkang Boss and Darkshire Councilman.
Yeah.
Sometimes the disco locks don't really run the Councilman because it can be a bit clunky to play if you want to go all in on your sort of discard strategy to try and get those Silverware Golems out early. But he's not quite all in on that with only one the Librarians. So he's gone for it's a disco lock deck, but a little bit more consistent, I would say, on average. It isn't as all in on the discard synergy. Certainly not as much as like his Hunter is all in on the secret synergy.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, so we are in game. Gas he started with his Dragon Warrior, and Zaymok has chosen his Token Druid that is also brought. Also, very nice list that he does have. Gas, with his starting hand, not maybe as great, unless of course we do see Zaymok throw down the Living Root 1/1s. So
yeah, so I mean, he does have Fiery War Axe. That's not too much to complain about. I mean, you would definitely like the Alexstrasza's champion and then another dragon to activate it, but he doesn't have the champion, so Fiery War Axe is probably the best he can realistically hope for. Zaymok is going for the 1/1s. I think he wants to just put a bit of pressure on, and also for the situation where Gas plays something like a Fairy Dragon, he wants to have a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
Whereas at the moment in his hand, he has no way to deal with it. He knows he's probably going to play Wild Growth on 2. So he could have held the Living Roots to play with the Violet Teacher later, but he just wants to make sure the board doesn't get too out of hand.
Yeah. Obviously, another reason is because he actually he has seen these lists, so he knows as well. Gas choosing not to actually use or even just play the Fiery War Axe. Very interesting. Oh, but
Yeah.
you do see Power of the Wild.
I mean, by hero powering, all he's really doing is protecting his minions. I mean, protecting, or like cancelling out the damage that the Living Roots would have done. But the Power of the Wild is quite nice. It protects them from the Ravaging Ghoul. And it's not that huge though, because the Fiery War Axe can now come down and deal with them. But he kind of traded the Power of the Wild there for like a War Axe essentially, which is not a terrible trade.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think here we might just actually see the Living Roots, the Wild Growth being played, start ramping up because it does allow him with with some actions with regards to Violet Teacher, especially if a minion does come on the board, that he'll be able to use like the coin Wrath to either clear or to cycle, whatever the case is. So he does have some options if he decides to do that, but I think coining out the Violet Teacher is also really, really nice here.
Yeah, coining out the Violet Teacher, I mean, it allows him to create 2 tokens next turn with the Wrath and the Wild Growth if he chooses to, which is essentially the same thing, except that he gets the Violet Teacher down now.
Yeah, I think that, you know, Gas needs to be concerned that the Violet Teacher can be quite a problem, especially if there isn't an additional Power of the Wild, because then your Ravaging Ghoul becomes pretty much worthless in that. But assuming that there isn't, do you maybe let it live for another turn?
Yeah, and thanks to the Execute nerf, he knows that he's not going to get like Ravaging Ghoul executed, which would be like sort of one of the better plays here for Gas. But I think Gas can probably just go with the Blood to Echo Ravaging Ghoul. So if he Blood to Echoes the Violet Teacher and then Ravaging Ghouls it, he can kill it with the War Axe, which is pretty good. You know, leaves him with a 3/3 and a 2/1.
I think your order would just be
that's a
changed
pretty good
around with
scenario.
that. I think your order would
sorry,
be, you would want to go the
correct,
Ravaging Ghoul, then Blood to Echo, so you have your 3/3 and the 2/2. But it seems like Gas is just going to clear the 2/2, and he's going to play the Twilight Guardian. Also not a bad play. I don't see too much wrong with that.
This is giving him a chance to create the 1/1s, but I don't think Gas really minds if he creates the 1/1s because he has the Ravaging Ghoul. I mean, the real punish here would be something like Wrath into Power of the Wild, but he's already seen 1 Power of the Wild, so he's probably not as concerned about that.
Exactly.
I think we might just see a Wrath into Wild Growth instead, sort of ramping him up closer to being able to play that Ancient of War.
Exactly. So he's going to definitely be wrathing for 3, so you can clear, and then also the Wild Growth, getting another additional token. I mean, 2 tokens you're not too worried about, but you're just getting a little bit closer, as you said, to that Ancient of War, which I think that Gas will definitely be saving for. So you do see the Blackwing Corruptor also on curve. So Gas, you know, he's playing really, really well in the sense that he's playing on curve really, really nicely.
I mean, he played really quickly there, and I'm not sure I really liked that much, to be honest. He could have just played Blood to Echo and Ravaging Ghoul to clear the board totally, and then not being punished by things like this Power of the Wild, or punished by something like a swipe that he could have been punished by, which would have cleared the 5/4 off. And now all of a sudden, he has these resources in hand that are just not as valuable. Like the Blood to Echo Ravaging Ghoul is just not as good. And the Blackwing Corruptor only being a 6/6 is just, it's not really enough in this scenario.
Yeah, most definitely. But I mean, if you have a look, Zaymok is potentially going to be starting to run out of resources, depending on what that Raven Idol does actually give him. But I think here there's nothing wrong with playing the Ancient of War. The only concern is, oh my word, if there's an execute, I could be punished a little bit by doing such.
Yeah, but if there's an execute, he needs to deal damage to it, which means he needs to Blood to Echo execute. That's now 3 mana, or Ravaging Ghoul execute, and that's like also just as bad. Or that's 5 mana, so it's even worse, really. And then if he uses the Corcoran to trade off, it's just kind of not really getting much from his resources.
I mean, he does keep the board clear. He's sitting nice in terms of his board position at the moment. He's most likely going to take for a spell. Ooh, Mulch, Wisps of the Old Gods, and Moonfire. I don't think Wisps is a card that you really want to get, but potentially, maybe? I don't know. I'm just more concerned that there's a problem about the 1/1s, but I think at this stage you're most likely going to try and build up a board so you can use it for the second ability of the giving your minions +2/+2.
Yeah, my game completely bugged there. I stopped seeing cards altogether, so I have to reconnect. I had that legend bug thing, and then anyway.
So it's your turn to get them and not me, thank goodness. Alright, so we do see Emperor Thorison come down to drop his Blood Mage as well as the Wisps in his hand. But Gas has now picked up another Twilight Guardian. No Dragon in their hand for the activator. I wonder if he sees it, or is he just going to be playing it as a 2/6? I think he is just playing it as a 2/6.
Yeah, probably trade off the Thorison here though. Although going face with the 6/3 is pretty tempting, but it just keeps you a much better board like this.
Yeah, most definitely. We do see the Wisps has been obviously with that discount of the Thurison, you know, becomes a lot more better to play with the things like Maya Keepers, etc., like that, so that you don't need to waste things like innovates, coins, etc., to actually get out that full potential. But Zaymok's actually got, I think, a bit of a tricky turn. Does he risk the flood of the board and get punished by Ravaging Ghoul? Or does he just go for like Maya Keeper and Wisps just to make his board pretty daunting with having a 5/5 and a 4/4?
Yeah, well, I mean, he can't quite play the Maya Keeper Wisps because he's one mana short of that combo, but I think this is probably his best option, just playing out his cards and hoping to get a bit more synergy with Wisps with the old cards. He is also running Soul of the Forest in his deck, so that's also really good synergy here. I mean, if he plays Wisps into Soul of the Forest, that's definitely something he might be sort of saving that Wisps for.
Yeah, most definitely. So we do see just the armor up here from Gas, and he'll most likely just end up trading not really favorably here for him.
Yeah, I mean, he can kind of take the better trades that are on board and then probably just go face with the 2/2. Okay, so he chooses to go to the 4/3, which is like understandable, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So we do see scenarios now as well that's been picked up.
Yeah, the Scenarios is pretty good, just because you want some high value minions. I mean, we can see that Gas has the Execute ready for the 5/8 body, and he can trade or he can kill off the 2/2s pretty easily.
Yeah.
So it's not that great for him, but as Zaymok, I mean, the only other card you were really hoping to see more than that was something like Soul of the Forest, or maybe a Nixia. But, you know, Nixia and Scenarios are both sort of equal in this scenario, it turns out.
Yeah. So we do see scenarios now as well. Well, here, do
Yeah,
you play
and
the
going
Wisps
for the
or do you go
buffs.
for the, or you just going to go for scenarios for buffs?
I think the Scenarios for buff is the reason he went for these Living Roots. So this means that it's much more difficult for Scenarios to, I mean, for the minions to be traded off. I mean, we see that he has the Ravaging Ghoul, which is pretty optimal in this scenario. And a Curator. That's what that card was. I couldn't see it.
So yeah.
Once again, I'm getting spammed about this, but
No worries. All right. So we do see Ravaging Ghoul is still there if he wants to get rid of the
Yeah,
the
but
3/3s.
now it's a lot more awkward because he
Your
has
Curator
to.
would be
He
trade.
can't. He can't execute the 5/8, and the Curator. The Curator goes down to 5
Do
HP,
you
so
do
trades
you
is
do you play Sir Finley here, picking up another hero power, either the Steady Shot or the Life Tap?
I'm not sure you necessarily want another hero power right here. I think you might just want to execute the 5/8 with and then trade off the 2/1 into it. Instead, he's opting to just sort of clear as much of the board as he can, and just go face for the 4.
We do see Finley come down.
Well, but right at the end of his turn, I don't like this. Doesn't really give him much time.
So he has
He just
taken.
picks Shapeshift.
Yeah, he just takes
but-
Shapeshift. I mean, he did also have Fire Blast as well
Yeah,
as
this is-
Life Tap.
This is pretty good synergy for the Wisps, though. He can play Wisps and then take the buff, and be buffing 3 minions for +2/+2, which is pretty good. And I mean, he hasn't seen the Execute, and I think he would have expected to see the Execute if there was one. So this also allows him to trade nicely into the Curator.
Yeah. So he is
yeah.
able to trade nicely into the Curator. Do you really want to play Azure Drake first, or do you want to maybe just potentially deal with the board first? He knows that he
I
has to
think
clear
you
board, yeah.
probably want to Execute, and then you're probably going to want to trade the 2/1 into the 3/1. So yeah, I think it might be better to do it that way. But I once again have to rejoin.
All right, so executing the Scenarios will be pretty good here. You know, Scenarios will be dropping down to, well, Scenarios will die. We do see the
Yeah.
Fierce Monkey come down as well. You definitely have to execute the Scenarios. Scenarios is just too much of a threat here at the moment. Potentially use Weapon to trade away.
Yeah, it indicates to me that okay, so he wants to execute the Teacher. He sees that as maybe more of a threat. Interesting. Especially seeing that he's put himself on 7 HP. I mean, a swipe here would be really, really good from the top. Swipe on the 3-4.
Oh, we do see a
would it-
swap coming off the Nourish. A
The
second
swipe
swap
living
as well.
roots is lethal.
We do see 2 swaps as well as a Fandral that has been picked up now.
I can't see
Double
Zaymok's
swipe
hand
and
yet,
Fandral.
So double swipe, you probably want to swipe one of the 4-4s then, because you're gonna trade then with the 7-6, and if you're trading with it, you want to trade it into the 3-4 rather, or you might just try and set up for lethal next turn, and swipe the 3-4, hit face with the 7-6, meaning you put him on 2 HP, which means that the swipe next turn is lethal, and then you can just hero power and put him down to 1 as well. Oh no, I'm sorry, you won't have mana for the hero power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might want to set up for lethal next turn. You haven't seen Grom, but he doesn't have a clear way of activating Grom.
So we just see a
this way
swap on the
you can
fierce.
leave him with 9-10 power on board, so he needs 6 damage from the top, which he's not going to get. So it looks like this is going to be Zaymok's game.
Yeah, there's nothing you can actually do here to actually deal with this unless you're going.
I mean, as Gas, like if he's assuming he's dead, then it doesn't really matter. But if he, I mean, you have to trade off your 4-3 here. The question is whether you trade off the Sir Finley rather and then play a Ravaging Ghoul, or whether you would rather have the 9-9 and the 3-2, which is probably a better board overall. The Ravaging Ghoul has been a little bit awkward. I would have really liked to see Gas play it much earlier, when it looked better, but he's been holding it for some value that just hasn't been there most of the game.
So there we go. We do see Zaymok able to pick up the first win in this. So Zaymok's going to go 1-0 up, and there's Conquest best of 5 or last hero standing. So, you know, Gas unfortunate losing with his warrior. I did feel that it might have been able to take it, but I think maybe just holding back the Ravaging Ghouls, maybe potentially something to look back at a little bit later on.
Yeah, I think the Druid was a little bit favored in that matchup, also because Zaymok's Druid is kind of tech to beat Warrior a bit with stuff like Harrison Jones in. Yeah, and having the extra threats of, you know, Cenarius plus Onyxia and Ancient of War, this deck is kind of meant to beat Warrior as well, and we kind of tested it relatively extensively versus different Warrior lists. Also, Soul of the Forest being a good card against Warriors. So I'm not too surprised he won that game. It's a pretty big win though. I think the best deck that Gas is going to have left though is his Hunter. So what he really wants to do now is counter with this Warlock, because the Warlock is probably the best deck against the Druid, and then he wants to try and sweep with the Hunter after that.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, so Gas, you know, his starting hand, not the greatest. He does have Power Overwhelming, Doomguard, Darkshire, Councilman, as well as the Soulfire. He keeps this Councilman, and Zaymok getting rid of his entire hand.
With no 1-drops in hand, he chooses to keep the Councilman, which is, especially in a discard lock deck, which is quite sort of clunky to have the Councilman. You might want to just play it earlier against the Druid, because Druid generally doesn't have great response to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zaymok's hand is a little bit clunky, but not too bad. I mean, he can go into the Innovate Maya Keeper next turn. Depending on what Gas plays, he might well do it for the mana actually instead of the body, even though usually you would probably do it for the body against Zoo.
Yeah.
Okay. With the Wrath, though, he might sort of change his mind there. It might be better to go for the body. Although if he innovates for mana here, it means he'll have 4 mana next turn and then 5 the turn after. So it means turn 4 or his next turn, he'll be able to Wrath and Hero Power down something from the Warlock, which is generally a pretty good sort of sequence for beating Zoo with this Druid, which is a pretty bad matchup generally.
Yeah. Alright, so we do see the Innovate. Are we most likely going to see the Maya Keeper come down? Zaymok is considering it. I mean, you don't really want to use a Wrath on it, and just using Hero Power. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure the Maya Keeper comes down. The question is which of the choose ones you pick. And he might still pick the the body option, just to give himself more options to trade. But I really like the mana option because I think that's how you're going to win this matchup. You need to be ahead. He also wants to be able to play something like a Ancient of War earlier, you know, and that's one of the cards that's sort of the best in his deck versus the Druid.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, so we do see the Darkshire Councilman come down now. Potentially going to open up, you know, potentially going to get the Silverware Golem out with the Darkshire Librarian. So
Yeah,
Zaymok
maybe.
picking up more ramp here, which is really nice.
Yeah, Zaymok's not in a bad position here though. He can Wrath the 1/3 and hit his Maya Keeper into the 1/5, meaning that it's going to be pretty easy for him to clear the Maya Keeper in future turns. He can also decide to either hero power the Darkshire Councilman and put it down to a 1/1 then, or he could opt to play the Wild Growth. The Wild Growth would take him to 6 mana next turn, which is kind of awkward. There's nothing really that allows him to do, except if he top decks a Living Roots, which is probably a consideration. It also does get him a little bit closer to that Ancient of War, and the earlier you can play Ancient of War versus the Warlock, the better. Doom Guards are okay versus Ancient of War, but generally the Warlock struggles to deal with Ancient of War, especially when Gas only has the single power overwhelming in his deck.
Exactly.
So he would have to burn probably 2 Soulfires and multiple minions into it.
My apologies, my phone just flashing. Right, so he does decide to rather just continue ramping up.
Yeah, and he decides to keep the Wrath. I think the idea is that he can Wrath next turn, but Wrathing next turn is a bit awkward.
Do you play the
I
Darkshire
wouldn't have minded
Librarian
seeing
now?
the Wrath there.
No, you definitely play Possessed
yeah.
Villager first.
Yeah, I mean, the Possessed Villager, you can probably play the Darkshire Librarian. Not the discard he wanted, but he only had a 1 in 3 chance of that discard being good, and to be honest, that discard is still much better than discarding the power overwhelming.
Exactly, so not too worried, but I mean, the Violet Teacher now is going to start assisting Zaymok as well. He does have the chance to, you know, Violet Teacher, you know, Wrath for 1, the Councilman, pick up another 1/1, and Gas is sitting in a little bit of a situation.
Yeah, this is sort of the reward for keeping the Wrath here, is that he kept it for a turn where it might have been more awkward otherwise. But, I mean, if he played it last turn, the Councilman would have been at low HP and not been able to trade. And yeah, so anyway, the PO here is really big. Killing off this Violet Teacher before it can start generating a lot of value means a lot. And here I would really like to see Gas going face. I don't think there's much reason to trade into the 1/1 here. Your Imkang Boss next turn is really good for killing the 1/1 because it will generate its own 1/1 at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, you're not too worried. I mean, trading there as well, you make your board a lot more vulnerable to a swipe as well. Because a swipe there would have meant swipe on the 2/4, and the Darkshire Librarian would have died. And if your opponent didn't want to, you know, he would have had to use, you know, use hero power as well, and basically leaving him.
So I like what Zaymok is doing here. If he wants to clear off, trade his 1/1 away so that there's better synergy next turn.
Oh!
Okay, that's pretty disgusting though. The double Silverware Golem, yeah. And the Doom Guard by itself, even if it was discarding cards that weren't Silverware Golem, would have been pretty good this turn. But getting that, what's that, 11, 15 stats on board for 5 mana is pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure Kriparian and Trump might be able to say something about that.
That's definitely valuable.
Oh man,
yeah. So Zaymok is in a tough position here. I mean, that's really one of the biggest blowout turns you can get for the discard lock. And so, I mean, Zaymok is not in a position where his life total is that low already, so he's not as threatened by it as he might have been otherwise. He's probably going to have to go for the Feral Rage play here. The only question is whether he actually does play it before or after the Teacher, or whether he maybe plays the Hearthstone instead. Because if he generates the 1/1, he's kind of giving his opponent value trade with the Imkang Boss, but he might actually want that. because it puts a little less pressure on his health total, meaning that he can hopefully come back into this game with value over time from the... Okay, so he's opting to take the HP rather than the... and he's going to be heavily punished for this. I mean, the Defender of Argus here can come down between the Imp boss and the Doom Guard, yeah, and then he can trade off, or he can hit the Doom Guard into the Violet Teacher, and now it survives.
Yeah.
And probably just trade off. Although, I wouldn't have minded him going all face there, to be honest. It's not that bad, but he would have been punished by something like an Ancient of War.
Yeah, but I mean, also by doing what he's just done now, he has put... There's lethal on board, 3, 5, 11, 14, 7... Okay, only 17. But if Zaymok plays it next year...
He's also put his Doom Guard in a position where, like, he's a little bit weaker to swipe now.
Unfortunately, this is going to be game year for Gas, because there's 17 on board, if my math is right. 3, 6, 9, 15, 17.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, with the Soulfire, it is like an easy lethal. Maybe he plays Doom Guard off the top here just to BM a bit. Although, I mean, he would discard the Soulfire, so Zaymok would know that it was lethal. I think Gas is just double checking. But, I mean, we saw Zaymok was doing well to sort of hold the board, but that turn of the Doom Guard to clear the Drake and get both of the Silverware Golems out was just too much for him to handle.
Yeah, and I think the Doom Guard maybe just playing just to try and tilt, but the discard will obviously show that the Soulfire, so there was lethal one way or another. Maybe Gas just, as you said, maybe just using a little bit of BM there. So
yeah, Gas is just trying to get every little edge he can here. But I don't think it's... Zaymok is not likely to tilt from that, I don't think. If anything, I feel Zaymok is more likely to tilt from his own mistakes rather than like BM from his opponents. I don't think that really bothers him much. I think he generally squelches early as well. So I don't think that's going to bother him.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, so I think I should actually update some scores here before everybody thinks what is happening here. So Gas has tied up the series with his Warlock, and we do see the Rogue being picked here, which was pretty much anticipated, to be honest.
Yeah,
so,
the Rogue is Zaymok's best counter to the Warlock. I'd expect him to probably only keep the Deadly Poison, although he is on coin, so he might consider keeping the Questing Adventurer as well, though. But it might be a bit slow versus this sort of Disco Lock deck. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to see a mulligan off the Gadgetzan and the Leroy. And from Gas's perspective, the Imp Gang boss is pretty good against Rogue, except against Sap. It's probably one of the best Sap targets, weirdly enough, in this deck. Especially if he keeps the Demon Fire as well, because then you're sort of going all in into the Imp Gang boss. And that's going to make Sap pretty like valuable if you manage to get it off.
Exactly. All right. So, you know, looking at the hand, Gas has got a, you know, Argent Squire is not too bad against Rogue.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best one drops. You generally don't want Flame Imp. This is one of the few minion matchups where you don't want Flame Imp.
Yeah, because, you know, Backstab just kind of wrecks it. So,
and we saw Zaymok chose to mulligan away the Deadly Poison, which was interesting. I mean, he gets it back, but he was sort of keeping for more of an all-in on this Questing Adventurer, and he does have that option there at the moment. Ooh. If he Hero Powers on 2, on turn 3 he can play Questing Adventurer, prep Fan of Knives, coin, Deadly Poison. That's likely to clear off the board, and it would turn his Questing Adventurer into a 6/6. Which would be a pretty good start.
I wonder if Gas is not maybe considering Corruption here, because Corruption could be a decent card in this matchup, which he does end up taking.
We know that it's probably definitely the best pick there, but it is also one of the ways that the Rogues tend to win this is something like early Edwin Van Cleef, and that's essentially what this Questing Adventurer kind of is in this scenario. It's kind of like a questing, kind of like an Edwin Van Cleef.
So there we go. So we see Zaymok just popping the bubble there. Here, you know, Gas, he's just almost thinking immediately, let's just go with M Gang Boss. Interesting that he's gone with that. I mean, you did pick up the Darkshire Councilman, but considering that it would be just really bad for it to die to something like a Shadow Strike, I agree with the fact that he's rather thrown down the Imp Gang Boss, especially with, you know, as we discussed earlier, the fact that he's running Demon Fire shows that he can go all in. And it also just makes Zaymok's, you know, play that we chatted about earlier, the fact that he could go Questing Adventurer, Prep, Fan of Knives, Coin, Deadly Poison, just seems a little bit more worse because of the 1/1s that are going to be spawning out of the Imp Gang Boss.
Yeah, the Imp Gang Boss definitely is good against the AoE that you might expect. But so now, I mean, he should order it such that he plays the Deadly Poison first, hits the Imp Gang Boss, and then sort of preps the Fan of Knives, which would only leave his opponent with a 2/1 and a 1/1. He might be opting here instead just to try and set that up for next turn, or next turn he might also go for like Bonds. Because leaving your opponent with a 1/1 and a 2/1 and you only have a 6/6 means that all they need is a power overwhelming or a Soulfire, and all of a sudden they have a much easier way of clearing your board.
Yeah, and Gas, you know, that Defender of Argus is actually really good for him here.
It is, and Zaymok looks like he's almost tilting a bit by spamming that Incredible, but it's not that bad for him. He does have the Fan of Knives, so he can play here the Questing Adventurer, coin the Blood Mage Thalnos, and prep the Fan of Knives, which is going to be 2 damage, clearing off everything on the board except the 2/3 and a 1/1 that will spawn. But he can clear one of those off with his weapon as well.
Oh man, that Questing Adventure is just so big already. Oh man,
Yeah,
I don't know how I
the
feel about
corruption
that.
is really going to punish him though.
Is he most likely?
But yeah, you clear off the 2/1 here, I think. Even though you take a bit more damage to face, because Power Overwhelming would be, and Soulfire would also be clears for your questing if you only cleared off the 1/1.
Is he thinking
I
about
don't
going
really
just
like
all
using
in?
the prep here, because... Okay, so I'm not sure what he thinks he's protecting it from by doing this, but I don't really like doing it because he has the second Questing Adventurer in hand, so if there's anything that his opponent plays next turn, he can, like, he could draw Saps, he could draw Eviscerates, he could draw the other Fan of Knives, which would all be good to combine with the questing next turn.
Exactly. So I think you just try to put it as a 7/7 just to maybe get it out of range of a Doomguard trade-off with the Imp. But
I mean, the things he's getting it out of range of are... I mean, it's actually nothing really. It's just Direwolf Alpha plus the PO. Like, otherwise he would have needed Abusive Sergeant. Okay, so Abusive Sergeant plus Soulfire, that's what he could have gotten it out of range of as well by doing that. Yeah, but it's definitely questionable, I think.
Yeah. So, you know...
And now he's in an awkward position where if he'd kept that prep, this turn would have looked pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. But Zaymok now considering what his plays are, do you think you just play the Azure Drake here? Just play on curve, hopefully pick up something?
I think you kind of need to play the Azure Drake. Fortunately, there's no other prep for you to draw.
Ooh.
But this is... So if he taps into a Silverware Golem, that's pretty close to lethal, but it's not lethal. Interesting. I think you probably do tap before the Darkshire, though. Okay, so now... By playing the Darkshire...
So that's 4, 8, 10 damage in hand. You're going to be 1 off lethal.
It's 9 damage in hand, because the Darkshire buffs the Darkshire Librarian buffs the Darkshire Councilman by 1.
Yeah, but then you're going to be losing one of your potential big damage cards here.
No, you can do it. You can order it such that you play the Power Overwhelming first, and then the Darkshire Librarian. And then you have a 1 in 3 chance, or 1 in 2 chance of discarding the Soulfire or the Demon Fire. And if you discard whereas this way he's guaranteed that he discards the Power Overwhelming.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, he does get to keep the Darkshire Councilman alive like this, which is the benefit of this play.
Exactly. So you know, sitting on 3-5 and a 3-2 on board
Yeah,
Zaymok.
but I mean, Zaymok is facing down at least 6 damage, probably more. But this way he can at least clear 3 and generate the best board he can, I suppose.
Okay, so we do see Malzahar's Imp being picked up, and a Knife Juggler.
So there's quite a few things he could tap into here for lethal. Double Knife Juggler, that's 3, that's 6, and he can juggle 3 times, so it's not quite lethal. Even if he juggled off to face. Zaymok is obviously hoping all these juggles go to minions, because there's no way that Gas is trading here.
Yeah, no, there's no ways. With a 6-5, you go face all day, every day. And
there's the punish for going face, though, in the Shadow Strike. He could Bonds, hoping to get a spell power, though, and then the Fan of Knives. I'm not sure. I think Gaddy's playing. Zaymok is trying to play to win. Yeah, there we go. There's the spell power. So now he can clear off all of the board except the Malkazar's Imp, because he trades or he can clear the Malkazar's Imp as well if he wants to. But I think you might push the 5 damage to face rather, because you need to finish this game before your opponent draws Doom Guard. There's still 2 Doom Guards and 1 Soulfire in the deck that could be lethal.
Yeah. So basically, in this situation, as
he needs to race him a bit.
I think you need to race. There's no way that you
Whereas there's no single card that isn't lethal. That's lethal with the imp on board that isn't otherwise. The only other combination would be the Direwolf Alpha plus the Abusive Sergeant. That's the only combination of 2 cards you lose to by leaving the Malkazar's imp on board.
Okay, so he does end up trading the Azure Drake away. And we do see an Edwin being picked up, but now how close is he to lethal? There's 6, there's 10 damage in hand, 10, 13, 18, he does have lethal this turn.
Yeah. So yeah, by just playing out his small spells, he does have lethal. So Zaymok managing to pull this one out, even though Gas looked like he had that in the bag for a while. But the Questing Adventurer and the Leroy really, managing to pull this game back for him, and also that Bonds into the spell power. I think Zaymok was really rewarded there for going for what was a lower percentage play, but also he was so far behind that he really needed that spell power, because he needed to clear all the minions off board there, not just the Darkshire Councilman. So I mean, yeah, I think that's good play from Zaymok. He recognized the way he was going to win the match, and he went for it, and he got it. So, that's deserved in many senses.
Yeah,
there.
Well deserved in many senses there. Going 2-1 up into this final match where Gas has got only his Hunter left against the Miracle Road of Zaymok. So, the question is now, what are Gas's chances with taking it with his Hunter, considering the list that he runs? I mean, besides the Secret Keeper early game, he doesn't really have any 2-drops, or 2-drops are basically the secrets. That's basically what
the full secret list is a little bit better against Rogue, because it's kind of difficult for Rogue to play around a lot of the secrets. But I think Gas is really not in that bad a position, because Hunter is pretty strong versus the last 2 decks that Zaymok has. I mean, it's not quite a mirror, because their decks differ quite a bit, as we spoke about, but that matchup is still close to 50-50. And this matchup for the Secret Hunter versus the Rogue is not as bad as traditionally mid-range Hunter was versus Rogue, because you're just not as vulnerable to like the saps as the mid-range Hunter traditionally was. As I said, the secrets make it difficult for the Rogue to interact with. So I definitely think it's possible for Gas to still win this. Obviously, it's a little bit of a disadvantage in that he has to win 2 games now, where Zaymok only has to win the 1.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't think Gas is out of this, and it looks like Gas has gone for a bathroom break at the moment, so gonna have to wait on that.
Yeah, potentially maybe just using it not only just to you know, when nature calls, you can't ignore it. But maybe also just to clear his head, because I mean, this next game could
Yeah.
potentially be the game where he moves down to the lower bracket, which I don't think he wants. You know, Gas has worked
No.
hard to get through to. I don't know, if you think about all the players, have actually worked really hard to get to where they are, and both of these players really do deserve to continue going up into the winners bracket. But Gas does have the potential to win this 3-2 with this Hunter that he does have. Pretty much, it's, you know, he needs to get off to a really nice start here. Excuse me, against Zaymok's rogue that he's actually got. And as you mentioned, it's very difficult for the rogue to play around the Hunter secrets. I mean, if you think about the OTK, which rogue normally goes for, it's the Leroy with cold bloods and everything. But Leroy dies to explosive trap. It's also really bad to freezing trap. And I mean, the fact that cat trick is also there, you know, you could be giving your opponent a 4-2 Panther.
Yeah,
And
the secrets are very awkward to play around for the rogue,
yeah,
basically. The rogue still, I think, is a little favored, and the nerf to Call of the Wild didn't help the hunter, because it gives the rogue a little bit more time to pull off the gadgets and turns, which are, you know, what the deck is sort of known as Miracle for. And one of the things that Gas is not playing in his hunter is Deadly Shot, so that also doesn't really help. But the secrets still make it very awkward even on those Miracle turns, because you have to fear the freezing trap. You know, you don't want your gadget to get frozen and return to your hand. You don't want to just give him a 4-2, but sometimes if you give them a 4-2, you can play like Spell Power, Prep a Fan of Knives, and clear it as well.
exactly. So there are options, but incredibly
Yeah,
awkward and difficult for the rogue to actually play around those secrets.
yeah.
I mean,
Overall,
yeah,
also Snipe is pretty good. Snipe is just there's no real minions in the rogue deck that actually survive Snipe. There are no 5 health minions at all in the rogue deck. So you almost have to sacrifice something into Snipe. The only way that a minion doesn't die is if you know, cast a bunch of spells to get a big Edwin. But you generally don't want your Edwin to take 4 damage just for playing it. So, and you don't generally want to play your Edwin into like a secret, because if it's freezing trap, that hurts a lot as well.
exactly. So, you know, as you say, pretty much, I feel that the deciding factor is going to be how Gas draws, as opposed to Zaymok, which is generally Hearthstone.
Well,
And
yeah, I
basically
mean,
the secrets that are going to be coming down.
Gas's deck is a lot more all-in on his synergy, so he's really hoping to get something like a Cloaked Huntress on 3 with like 3 secrets after having played a Secret Keeper before that, you know? That's the kind of like dream start for this kind of deck. His big problem is if he does do that and Zaymok manages to sort of cleanly deal with his secrets, he's going to run out of gas quite quickly, ironically.
I
Um,
see what you did there.
so yeah, that's sort of the biggest weakness of this deck.
Oh, most definitely. All right. So, looking at Gas's starting hand, he does have the Secret Keeper as a start, Curator, Quickshot, and Eaglehorn.
Yeah,
Zaymok.
Eaglehorn Bow is one of the other things we haven't really mentioned that much, but is really, really big in this matchup. Eaglehorn Bow is particularly good against Rogue, and when you have the traps, you get a lot of charges from your Eaglehorn Bow. I think that Eaglehorn Bow is probably the singular reason that Secret Hunter is actually viable. And we see he even has 2 here. So, Zaymok not having a nice way to deal with the Secret Keeper means he might just hit his hero power into the Secret Keeper, so that if his opponent casts a freezing trap next turn, he can still clear the Secret Keeper with the... or casts any trap next turn. Sorry, he can still clear the Secret Keeper with the SI7 agent.
Yeah. All right. So now the question is that I don't think you play Freezing Trap, but I definitely think you do play the Snake Trap. You're basically going into
You're going into turn 3. The card that you're worried about is SI7 agent. I mean, he just hit your minion instead of doing nothing. So it's probably better to play the Freezing Trap, although you are likely to play Eaglehorn and just clear off the 3-3 anyway. Snake Trap is generally probably one of the weakest traps against Rogue. So I might have preferred seeing him play the Freezing Trap, just because you don't know if in future turns you're going to have any time to really play it. You're going to be playing the Eaglehorn Bow next turn, and then probably coin a Zerdrake if you don't draw some other kind of 4-drop. So it's a little bit awkward here. And we see Zaymok is contemplating hitting face with the hero power first, just to check for the explosive trap or the bear trap. The big issue being that he doesn't want it to be bear trap, otherwise that would trade off cleanly into his 3-3.
Exactly. All right, so Zaymok now, he's just deciding to pass. Maybe this has worked out fairly well then for Gas.
Yeah, once again, the Eagle Horn Bow is really good against the Rogue. Just being able to clear the board and play a weapon which Rogues can't really interact with. So Zaymok knows it's not swipe now, so this Tomb Pillager seems pretty appealing. If he does fear that it is Freezing Trap, he doesn't even have to attack with the Tomb Pillager. I mean, we're going to see 2 traps come down here, so I think it's unlikely that he attacks with the Tomb Pillager now, because he really doesn't want to get it frozen. He might well just consider the Azure Drake, especially having 2 in hand now, because that's a minion that, if it gets frozen, is not that bad. And if it gets sniped, that's awkward, but at least you drew a card.
Exactly. All right, so the
But he
freezing
goes
trap.
for the Freezing Trap. Okay.
Yeah.
He's basically offering his opponent a potential 2-card like synergy, two charges this turn with the Eagle Horn Bow, because he has to sort of be worried about a snipe here.
Yeah.
And if he was going to play the Azure Drake, he probably could have played it first. If you like attack face with the weapon, then play the Azure Drake, because that way he checks for more traps at once.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But
this line.
considering his line of play that he has done, though, the only secrets that he can anticipate that is down there is, as it is potentially Snake Trap and Cat Trap.
Well, and
Cat
snipe.
Trap, yeah.
He didn't. He wasn't sure whether it was snipe.
But
last
by
time.
doing that, he
But
definitely
now
now
he knows. Yeah.
So he knows there's no bear trap or explosive trap or anything like that. So playing like that, I feel perfectly fine with.
Yeah, and he does rather probably draw the explosive trap to confuse Zaymok a bit more if he chooses to actually play it here. He might choose to play the explosive trap and quick shot the Azure Drake to deal with it. It's a bit awkward. He might also just choose to play his own Azure Drake, because next turn if Zaymok is unable to deal with the Azure Drake, then he can quick shot for 4. But that quick shot synergy might also mean that he's tempted to hold it, because he can coin quick shot with the Azure Drake next turn. So this is a bit awkward for Gas. He might also just play the explosive trap and hero power and hit face, or maybe not hit face. But he might hit face just because he has the extra Eagle Horn Bow. So
I see absolutely nothing wrong with US going face.
It's a case of, like, does he believe that he's going to confuse Zaymok enough by playing the explosive trap? Like, it's a game of bluff, really, because the explosive trap isn't actually good by itself. Okay, so he goes for the line, which is just generally just the better card by itself, which is the Azure Drake here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
now Zaymok can play his own Azure Drake and then backstab for 4, which is probably favorable unless he wants to draw with the Fan of Knives, or okay. So
oh, there we go.
Okay,
Yes,
yes, sorry, yeah. This is much better. So he was testing for the cat trick because he knew it was cat trick and snake trap. So yeah, this is a much better line. This is one of the plays I spoke about before in the game as well, with that Fan of Knives with spell power, and all of a sudden the cat trick doesn't look all that intimidating. And now he has no need to proc the snake trap, which he knows it is as well. So he can go face with the Azure Drake and face with his weapon. Even confident enough to put the Cold Blood on because he's sort of played around all the traps.
yeah, all right. So there's now, he's put gas down quite significantly. Secrets now costing 0. Tracking. What do you pick out of the tracking that we just see here, which is Rag,
Ooh.
Snipe, and Freezing?
I mean, Rag is very, very good against Rogue, but at this situation, you don't know if you're going to have time for Rag. So you might have to pick the Freezing and play like Cloaked Huntress plus the Freezing Explosive.
Sorry, just to disturb you. I'm just going to be disappearing for a second. I'll be here shortly.
Microphone
Sure.
muted.
So in this scenario, you might want to play something like the Cloaked Huntress and then the Freezing plus the Explosive. Just go face and try and kind of race the Rogue. Because if you pick the Ragnaros for the value, ultimately you might not even get to play it before the game is just over. So yeah, I like this line of play. He gets 5 damage in with the hero power and the weapon this turn, and he sets up another 2 guaranteed damage at some point with the explosive trap. So getting his opponent quite low and setting up what could be an advantageous race situation. And now Zaymok is in a position where he needs to play around multiple secrets, having just seen 2 played this turn. So now he's in an awkward position, not knowing what they are. He knows one is Snake Trap, but it's going to be quite awkward for him to play around because he also doesn't want to trade the minion in. He really doesn't want this Azure Drake returned to his hand because it has the Cold Blood on it already. So he might go for the Azure Drake this turn just to draw, test for snipe a bit. The Barnes doesn't really present that much value. The Tomb Pillagers are tempting as well, in which case he'd probably just rather play the 6-mana Tomb Pillager. But he tests for the freezing. Unfortunately for him, getting the Azure Drake frozen and returned to his hand. And the explosive trap going off. So that's just another extra 2 damage. And Gas's bow is really building up a lot of charges. We've seen this bow do quite a lot of work. Really coming back to what we mentioned earlier about Eaglehorn Bow being so crucial in this matchup. And here we see Zaymok going with the Azure Drake. So going with the Azure Drake here, it allows him to hero power, which I think was his plan. Maybe he was hoping to pick up the Eviscerate as well. Instead opting to just go for the Sap, just to slow Gas down. Whilst Cloaked Huntress is not the most tempting target to Sap, it does just mean that he's not going to be taking the 3 damage this turn.
Yeah. All right.
Ooh.
Sorry, I am back. So I see the animal companion here for Huffer.
Yeah, they're always Huffer.
It's always Huffer. It's spawn a random Huffer. Nobody wants to. Blizzard doesn't want to change that card text. But nevertheless, sorry about that. Just alarm company calling. Been able to resolve
no worries.
that.
So Zaymok is in a position where you can see him mousing over his own cards. He's mousing over his Leroy, and he's 1-off lethal with if he top decked a Eviscerate. So like he's trying to set up a position where he can just burst the hunter down, and we see Gas here is kind of trying to decide what to do with this Huffer. If the Huffer goes face, that's very, very tempting, and I think that's ultimately what he is going to do with it here. He also needs to figure out if his opponent has any lethal outs. Last game he got crushed by that really heavy, really big turn with the Leroy, Cold Blood, and the Questing Adventurer. So he might be a little bit worried about something like that again.
All right, having a look. There's Thalnos, but there's no real other activators here because Leroy, he's got 11 basically that he can do this turn.
Yeah, if he plays Leroy, he basically has to trade. He knows that Trap is Snake Trap, so he can't trade, which is one of the other nice reasons for pushing the Huffer face last turn, is that the Snake Trap and your opponent knowing it's a Snake Trap means they really don't want to trade with your minions. You've also seen 1 Fan of Knives, which would have been the really punishing card. The Bonds, there's nothing that's really very tempting. Yeah.
And there we go. Zaymok is just going to end up conceding. So, as we discussed, Gas able to pull it back. It's now 2-2. Gas going into the final game with his Hunter, and Zaymok also going to be going in with his Hunter. Mirror matchup in terms of classes, not so much in terms of the decks that they are using.
Yeah, so the decks, I think Zaymok's list will be a little bit more consistent, but the amount of secrets in Gas's list really make the deck difficult to play around, and it can really have those blowout turns with the Cloaked Huntress and multiple secrets. Those are more likely because of the sheer number of secrets he has. Barnes is also more value in his deck on average, although I think, that last matchup we saw where the secrets really were just so awkward to play around. I mean, Snake Trap ended up doing nothing, but just the fact that there was a secret meant that, early, Zaymok maybe didn't necessarily make optimal plays. But, I mean, we saw he did actually manage to navigate the secrets pretty well, bar having the Azure Drake freezing trap later on. So I think Zaymok here is probably just trying to sort of clear his mind and get back, into the game. Maybe just trying to get sort of over the disappointment of losing that game, and what he would have hoped would have been a win for the Rogue. You know, feeling that the Rogue is probably a little bit more favored than the Hunter in that matchup. And yeah, even though I think his Hunter list is pretty good, it could be like the Kindly Grandmother is pretty nice as well, although it can quite easily be freezing trapped. But it's also a good thing to play into something like Snipe. So yeah.
All
The
right.
Houndmaster in Zaymok's list is also quite important for just sort of trading on board more favorably.
Just so that everybody is also aware, so far there hasn't seemed to be any other results in with regards to the other games. So it seems like everybody's also already going into a much tougher round. All right, let's go back to our game with Gas and Zaymok. Gas now with double Snipe and Call of the Wild. You know, Snipe could be potentially good, but the problem is that the Kindly Grandmother, etc., which is just really, really bad against.
Yeah, you're going first, so Snipe will generally hit a 2-drop. That's really not what you want. So I don't think you can keep either of these Snipes. I don't think you obviously don't keep the Call of the Wild. But from Zaymok's perspective, the Kindly Grandmother and the Cloaked Huntress is pretty nice curve. So yeah, we're likely to see him play the Kindly Grandmother on 2 and the Eaglehorn Bow on 3, or the Cloaked Huntress, depending on what Gas manages to get out.
He's actually got a really nice start here, I think, with the Secret Keeper. It might just change Zaymok's turn.
Yeah, this might tempt him into coining out the Eaglehorn Bow rather than playing the Kindly Grandmother. Because at worst case scenario, Kindly Grandmother kind of trades 1-for-1 with the Secret Keeper, because you'd expect it to, depending on the Secret played, to at least hopefully clear the 3-2 part of the Grandmother, the Death Rattle part. You would hope to at least clear the...
So we do see the Cloaked Huntress coming down with the Cat Trick as well as the Explosive Trap. So actually really not bad, but...
his hand is going to be awkward for the next few turns, though, whereas Zaymok plays the Grandmother here, hoping to play into Snipe, but it's not Snipe, so he probably wants a scenario here where he could trade with the Eaglehorn Bow and the Grandmother into the 3-4, or he might be hoping to just play Houndmaster on the first body from the Kindly Grandmother.
Yeah. Okay.
You can also look to... So he has no idea what Secret this is. He just knows it's not Snipe so far. So it could still be Freezing Trap, in which case you'd rather attack with the Grandmother first and then just probably replay the Grandmother. Whereas if it's Explosive, you also want to attack first so that you can put the buff on the 3-2 body. If it's Snake Trap, you don't want to trade. So playing it like this is also good, because it means you don't want to trade the 1-1 and their weapon into the Cloaked Huntress.
Actually, a lot of plays here which are available here.
Yeah, so now the question is whether he wants to go face at all and risk it being a freezing trap, and he's opting not to, which is kind of going to work out for him. The quick shot here is quite tempting, but yeah, actually the quick shot's really nice, because your opponent's a little bit worried already and played around the fact that it might be freezing trap. So putting them on a board where there's only 1 minion kind of also threatens that it might actually be the freezing trap.
Yeah.
And he just sort of is getting maximum value from his 3-1 here. I mean, his Cloaked Huntress.
Yeah. Okay, so, you know, the Big Bad Wolf going to be training into the Cloaked Huntress. Question is now...
So he's relatively sure at this point that it's not freezing trap. He knows it's not snake trap. He knows it's not snipe. So he has to almost know that it's explosive trap and tracking. I mean, explosive trap and bear trap. Or cat trick. So those are the 3 secrets it could be at this point.
Yeah.
He probably thinks it's a cat trick because there's 2 cat tricks and only 1 bear trap in there.
Yeah.
And 2 explosive traps and only 1 bear trap. So statistically it should be these 2 traps, but he's about to find out.
So, going Animal Companion might be better, first for the fact that you've got the kill command that you're able to deal with the Savannah High main.
Yeah, the kill command is really nice here. Sure, you give your opponent the cat trick 5-2, but you can trade off. You can use your weapon, or you can trade off to deal with these 2/2 minions, which is a really big play for Zaymok here.
Yeah.
And I expect him to trade the minions, even though trading the 4/2 in means that you're weaker to the explosive trap that you might expect it to be. So I think there he might be considering that as a bit of a mistake. I think maybe now that he's contemplating using the weapon on a 2/2, he would rather have traded his Secret Keeper in and then and then used his weapon on the 2/2.
Yeah.
But now in this situation, I expect him to probably just keep his weapon and trade the 2/2 in. I mean, otherwise he's relying on top decking a secret, which, considering he hasn't had any yet, is a 1 in 8. I mean, an 8 in 20, sorry. Which is pretty good odds of drawing a secret.
Alright, he's got a pretty nice hand here. He's got a turn 8 to, Call of the Wild turn 9. So there we go. We're going to see all the secrets finally being triggered. And we're going to see the Curator come down, most likely.
Yeah. It's a bit awkward because the high main trades very favorably into the Curator, but it does give him resources. The Rag, though, is going to really, really hurt here. And I think that this is looking very favorable for Gas at this situation. Zaymok doesn't really have a way of dealing with the Rag, and is in a very, very awkward position. I mean, his best play is probably to play the Cloaked Huntress and the Azure Drake, just to try and widen the board. If he only plays one minion,
but he does have, but there is lethal with the Call of the Wild anyway.
But so, I mean, he still has to try and maximize his chances based on the board he can see. That's what I'm saying. Like we know that the Call of the Wild is going to be lethal regardless. But yeah, Zaymok is. I mean, by playing the trap, he might threaten that the Call of the Wild is not lethal, but Gas will check first. No, it's not explosive trap, and.
But either way, there's lethal.
Now he doesn't have the lethal.
He doesn't have lethal this turn, but he has lethal next turn.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no healing in Hunter, so you just play Call of the Wild and face. I mean, it was a little bit risky this way. He missed lethal this turn, but it doesn't really set him up in a scenario. He's on 30 HP. He's not in risk of really being, killed himself. So I think even though he missed lethal that turn, it was a higher percentage play in the off chance that it was explosive trap.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair enough play. So yeah, Gas managing to take this, and as we said, the Hunter had a decent chance against the remaining 2 decks of Zaymok and managing to win. Just getting a much faster start there as well against Zaymok, and against the Rogue. All the secrets and the Eaglehorn Bow just did a lot of work. He really got maximum out of his synergy in that matchup.
Oh, most definitely. And I mean, well played by Gas in the end. He played, playing that Hunter really, really well. At the end, possibly being, very wise. We had, at least cast a vision where we were able to see that wasn't explosive, so you could have won that round. But either way, nothing that Zaymok could have done to stop that. I think Gas just had a really nice start, and I mean the secrets that he also had made it very challenging for Zaymok to play around. Considering that Zaymok didn't really see any secrets until the end there. You saw that one snake trap at the end.
Yeah, Gaddy's Hunter Zaymok's Hunter didn't really work out for him there in the end. A little bit unfortunate. I feel, he probably could have won both those matchups against Gas's Hunter, but Gas's Hunter, did a lot of work for him, and might be exposing a possible weakness in Zaymok's lineup. So, Zaymok dropping down to the lower bracket, obviously not what you want, but he's still doing well, and he's still definitely in this tournament. It's going to be a long road now from the lower bracket for him, but it's definitely possible. And Gas moving on to face either Bloodsloth or Pandemonia, so that should be a good game. We see some other results coming in, by the way.
Yeah. So there's some other
Liu
results.
managed to beat Skunksy 3-2,
Yeah.
and Selfmort beat Tom 3-1. So we're going to see Liu versus Selfmort in one of the next winners bracket games, and then we'll see Gas versus the winner of Bloodsloth and Pandemonia.
Yeah, not too sure what's happening with the score there, but to give details of the people that have been knocked out, Cole has unfortunately been knocked out of the tournament. Major Pain taking the win there 3-1, and Sir Dodo has also been knocked out by Slider 3-0. So there's still two other knockout games happening at the moment, which is Apex and Scythe. Still no result there at the moment, and Erida versus Grey, still no result there. But as you said, the next games that's most potentially going to be up is Self-Murd versus Liu. So everybody that is interested, the game that will be starting next at, where is my schedule? I wish I had it in front of me. At 1 o'clock will definitely be the next winners bracket game, which will be Self-Murd versus Liu. That will be casted here at 1 o'clock. And then hopefully we'll be able to give you guys some more results with regards to who's been knocked out and everything. Unfortunate for them being knocked out before the lunchtime break on day 2.
Yeah, but on the bright side, they get to look around the the exhibition. I mean, DGC happening at Rage, and it's obviously a great expo to be at. So it's not all bad.
Yeah,
I mean, in the end, there's only prize money for top 4. So you really need to make top 4 to hit the prize money. So as much as everyone wants to make it as far as they can, getting knocked out early, it's not the worst case in this. In this tournament.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, you still have the option that there is also the Masters on. So if you guys are interested in that, you can definitely, they'll be able to go and watch the Masters with a 1 million rand prize pool for Counter-Strike and Dota. I understand there have been games on already this morning. But yes, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're going to be back at about 1 o'clock for the next game, which will be Self-Murd versus Liu. We're going to make sure everything is all set up. So we're going to take a little break, stretch our legs, keep ourselves refreshed.
I believe Apex won his game. I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not 100% sure on score, but I think he won his game, meaning that Scythe is also knocked out.
All right, okay. So we'll be able to confirm that a little bit later when we come back. But Grays has been knocked out by Erida 3-0. So loser bracket games currently that we can see that are going to be happening is Slider versus Skunksy, as well as Erida versus Tom. So hopefully Skunksy is able to pull off something there and pick up a win. However, if he does pick up a win, he will then be playing either Tom or Erida. After that, he will most likely be playing the I don't think. Yeah, it's just a whole bunch of TBDs, so I can't actually follow exactly who's going to be there. But
yeah, so the winners, the lower bracket round, they will play the winner of the other lower bracket match in the next round, and then the losers from the next winner bracket round only go into round 4 of the lower bracket. So that's how it'll work here. The losers from this round will play in the second round of the lower bracket, and then the winners of the second round lower bracket games play each other, and then they start meeting losers from the winner bracket again.
Yeah, pretty much. So pretty, there's still a lot of Hearthstone to be played today. Just having a look with regards to the people that are in the winners bracket still, which is Self-Murd, Liu, Gas, and then either Bloodsloth or Pandemonia. If they win their next game, I believe that they are guaranteed at least then 4th, the bare minimum. Because even if they lose that, they will then go to the loser bracket. Yeah, so basically.
If they win one more game, they are guaranteed 4th. Yeah, which is guaranteed in the prize money for them. So
yeah. So there will be some cash monies available for them, assuming that they can get there. But to everybody, thanks very much for joining us. We will be back in about 40-45 minutes for the next game, which will be Liu versus Self-Murd. All right, thanks very much, guys. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
Cool. Cheers.